So I've been meaning to record this video for like a month now, but work has just been sucking the life out of me. Now here I am, it's early on a Saturday morning, the best time for me to do a video because I have no background noise. Finally getting around to this. So I picked up these three Kizers back in August, and I was like so impressed by them that it was making me wonder why I've been sleeping on this brand for so long. So before I get into these in particular, I think I'll talk about kind of like what my history with this brand is. So going back like, I don't know, 10 years ago, when Kizer was kind of first coming into the market and gaining popularity, I picked up a model from them, and I don't even remember the name of it. And it was actually really beautifully finished. I think it was a titanium frame lock with a blue anodized handle. I think it looked almost like a Hinderer, like an XM18, kind of like like a generic knockoff. Anyway, I was really impressed by the finishing on it and all that, but otherwise the knife kind of sucked. It actually had the action wasn't great, the centering was a little off, the detent was poor. I ended up selling it, and I never really came back to the brand. And I know that that's a long time ago, and since then I've really seen a lot of progress with the brand. I've seen a lot of positive reviews, but I just wasn't really seeing anything in their catalog that I was like, I gotta have that. So fast forward to like last year, I saw that, I don't remember which site, it was like Blade HQ or something. They had these are the XL Sheepdog. And it is a big knife for sure. I was going through like a kick, like a little phase where I was like really obsessed with like really big chunky knives, and these were only like $90. So I picked this up, and I was actually really impressed by it. This one in particular is it's a 4-inch blade in 154 cm. You can see there. Micarta handles. Pretty sure the frame is just stainless with a coating on it. But I was actually really impressed by it. I don't love the knife in particular, probably just because I got the XL version, and it's scaled up in such a way that it just doesn't really fit my hand. Maybe someone with like really big hands, it'll work better. Probably much better if I had gotten the standard version. But anyway, really impressed by it. But for $90, I was like kind of blown away by the quality of the action, how solid the lockup was, the centering. You can see that. So I was like, okay, maybe I should start paying a little bit more attention to this brand. I'm not really going to go into this one too much. And then not too long after that, my wife got me this version of the Cormorant, which is a model that was fairly popular from them a couple of years ago. And they've done a bunch of different versions of this. She got me this one because it has the same like buttons as on a PlayStation controller, and we are nerds, so we thought that was cool. And this, and this is not, again, it's not really one of my favorites in terms of the overall design, but again, it's pretty impressive for, I think these were like $100. It's lightweight, well designed. As far as button locks go, the button lock feels really solid. It's got a solid detent. It flips out nicely. It's finished well. But I mean, this isn't really one of their more premium offerings. Nonetheless, I was like, okay, I was really happy with this. But still, I wasn't really like looking into Kizer the way I should have. So then going back to a little bit later, I saw this guy. This is the Clairvoyant. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give that a try. Like, it looks like kind of a nice design. And again, this was only like $100 or so, maybe 110. I don't remember the exact price. And I got this in it, and I was like, okay, this is the point where I became super impressed. And I was like, I have to pick up some more Kizers in my collection. So this one in particular is, again, it's the Cormorant, and I think this is a 3.6 inch blade. I guess it's like, I don't know what the blade shape is, a modified Wharncliffe. You can see it's got the belly, so it wouldn't technically be a Wharncliffe, but the point drops off similar in a way to a sheep. Okay, I guess you'd call this a sheep's foot. But it's beautifully finished. You can actually see my face in there. It's like a polished stonewash, kind of similar to like what Spyderco does on some of their Taiwan-made stuff. Button lock again, but again, you know, button locks are tough to do well, but this one is done well. The detent on it is just right, at least for, you know, a thumb stud deployment. It deploys very well, both in terms of like a flick and in terms of a slow roll. And it feels solid enough too. Like, I haven't tried to make this button lock fail, but I don't know why you would really need your button lock to withstand, you know, hundreds of pounds of pressure with the way that you should be using a folding knife. But anyway, so it's really well done. Centering, not quite perfect on this one, but really good enough. At least for me, like at this kind of price point, and considering the overall quality of it, I'm not going to really let that bother me too much. So this is brass bolsters. The hardware, I assume, is all stainless and has a black coating on it. The frame, I also assume, is stainless at this price point with the black coating. It actually has a machined pocket clip, and a pocket clip that actually works very well, which again I think is actually really good for something in the $100 price range. And these, I guess it's a burlap micarta, which I don't personally love the look of, but there's really no issues in terms of the quality of it. It's finished nicely. Aesthetically, it's not really my favorite, but, you know, beauty is always in the eye of the beholder, so other people might really like this particular type of micarta. It's the only thing that I've had with it, but again, not my favorite. In terms of micarta, I prefer, you know, some of the other types, like the one on the this XL sheepdog. I like this more in terms of both the aesthetic and the texture. Yeah, I was really happy with this, and especially for like only $100. So I was actually kind of, you know, I think convincing my friends that they should look into this model as well. So anyway, I didn't really want to focus on this model for this video, but this is kind of the one from Kizer that made me kind of go, okay, I have to start to look into this brand more. So, but then I was kind of stupid from there, and I didn't really pull the trigger on anything else from Kizer. Like, I'd seen some models here and there where I was like seeing all these, you know, gushing reviews on YouTube saying how great they were, but I was ever just like, you know, that doesn't look that interesting to me. I'm not gonna get that. And then I regret it because then they were no longer in stock, and what can you do from there? So, this is the first one that I think they released this like late last year in 2023. Not sure. So this is called the Dogfish, and I had it on my wish list. I just, you know, for $100, you know, I could have afforded it, but, you know, I had other things I wanted to spend my money on. By the time that I got around to going like, okay, I'm going to get one of these, they're out of stock. Luckily, I was able to find one of these on, what's it? I want to say NAF sale, but now it's called Blade Binge, used. So I picked this up at a bit of a discount, actually, and it was in, you know, like new condition, more or less. Once I got this in hand, I was like, whoa, I really wish I'd picked this up sooner. It's really impressive. So this one is, it's about a 3-inch blade. I think maybe like a 3.1 or something like that. So it's a little bit smaller than what I typically like. 154 cm blade with a black coating. At this price point, I assume this is not a DLC. So probably prone to scratching, but that's okay. Black anodized aluminum handle with a machined pocket clip, probably the same coating as on the blade. This cool little feature, so the pocket clip's reversible, but they put this actually really nice looking filler piece in here, which, I mean, look how closely fit that is. That's very impressive. Much nicer than just putting in a filler tab and a screw. And then there's this, they call it, I think, on the Kizer website description, a ripple pattern. But if you actually look closely, it's not a true ripple. It's actually a spiral pattern that radiates out from the pivot point to give some texture. But the aluminum is also finished in a way where there is some texture to begin with, like it's a bead blast. And then they put this spiral machining in it. So there's a lot of grip, but it's not the kind of grip that's going to tear up your hand. It's very comfortable. Really good ergonomics. You can grip it this way, and you might not be able to get all 4 fingers on, but then it's shaped in a way it's very easy to choke up. So I like the way it feels in hand. Also, the action is great. Another button lock. You can do a standard flip. You can do what they call the reverse flick. Not the easiest to get in there with the thumb and open it this way, but you can also do it as a front flipper, which it's a little tougher for me to do because I'm kind of stuck under the camera. But yeah, really, really well designed knife and super well executed as well. I mean, I think Kizer nailed this one, and the designer also nailed it. And I don't recall the designer's name, but this is not an in-house design from Kizer. This was, I believe, designed by a knife designer, and Kizer just did a really great job of making it. So that was one. Slept on it, shouldn't have. Lucky to get one in hand now, and super happy with it. The next one was actually the Militaw. So this is another model. It's been out for a little while, and they've done a few different versions of this. And when they first came out, it completely flew under my radar. Like, I was aware of it, but right now the market is just really kind of saturated with titanium frame locks. Okay, especially flippers. And this is another titanium frame lock. So this is obviously not the standard version of it, if you're familiar. The standard version of this had an uncoated titanium handle with a carbon fiber inlay, and the blade I think had a stonewash finish. The blade was, I think, in S35VN, and they were selling them for like $180 or so. I don't remember the exact price, but I remember seeing a handful of reviews, very positive, basically saying that the action was incredible, that the ergonomics were great, and there was really nothing negative to say about it. And again, I was like, okay, that's kind of cool, but I'm not gonna go and spend my money on that because I already have so many really great titanium, frame locks in my collection. What's special about that would make me want to buy it? So I was attracted to these polished DLC versions. Okay, and as you can see, they do look really cool. So this version in particular has an M390 blade, so it is an upgrade on the steel. The polished DLC, which looks super cool. Obviously, the frame also has a black coating on it. I don't know if it's a DLC. I haven't looked into that. But I would assume that it's not. And the 80s carbon fiber inlays, which I personally love the look of. And I mean, designs, features otherwise, machined pocket clip. I mean, it's really it's kind of the standard fare for what you see from knife companies nowadays. At least if they're trying to be competitive with their titanium frame locks. But it's a machine clip, and yeah, the action is amazing. So the detent is just tuned so well. It works really well with a reverse flick. It works really well as a front flipper. Super easy to deploy. Drops shut. Mine actually, I think it could be even better. There is actually no oil. I've noticed on the blade in terms of like the detent ball or the detent track. So if I put a drop in there, it might even become smoother. And I have noticed personally that having a coating on the blade actually makes the action slightly worse. You know, it's going to affect the friction and the wear-in of the bearings, you know, against the blade. But again, it's still really, really good. And so when I got this, you know, obviously I think it's really cool. I love it. The ergonomics are great. The size of it is kind of like just right for you know, an EDC, right? It's like a little under 3.5 inches. It's like a 3.3 inch blade where it's kind of neither too big nor too small. Like I can't fault this knife in any way. I think it's more or less perfect. So I was kind of kicking myself, like, well, back when this model first came out, you know, in its standard variation, why didn't I pick one up? Because I think I would have really enjoyed it. Not that I regret having this version, and I don't know if I would have picked up this version if I had gotten the original, but, you know, I think one of the first things I did was I went to, and I texted my friend who runs his own channel, the EDC Knife Noob, and I was like, dude, like, this model is awesome. You got to get your hands on one. And you know, at that given time, I don't think there were a ton of these in stock everywhere, you know, at least in terms of the standard version, but I did see that like White Mountain Knives had, you know, their own exclusive version, I think with, you know, slightly downgraded materials, but at a lower price point, like $130. I think it's so worth it. And I would really recommend that anyone who thinks that this is even like vaguely interesting, any version of it, pick it up, because I don't think that you would regret it. So the last one I'm going to look at is actually the one that impressed me the most, and that's the Drop Bear. Okay, so this is another model. Kizer came out with this a few years back, you know, after Benchmade's patent had expired on the Axis lock. Everyone was releasing their own versions of, you know, the crossbar lock. Kizer came out with the Drop Bear, and you know, again, everyone in, you know, the community was kind of raving about these. They were giving them very positive reviews, and the whole time I'm looking at them and going like, I don't get what the big deal is. I don't know why I would want that. For starters, I've never been a fan of the crossbar locks. Not that I think that they're bad. It's just that I don't like the, I guess, the tactile feel of them. And also, you know, I think this is on the smaller side. The blade is actually a 2.9 inch blade, and that, generally speaking, that's smaller than I prefer. So I have to admit, this is actually the first knife I had purchased just for the sake of doing videos on. And the reason for that was that my friend, the EDC Knife Noob, is fond of crossbar locks. And so I had actually wanted to do a video just to kind of compare the quality and the feeling of crossbar locks across a few different brands. You know, Benchmade, Bestech, you know, everyone's doing them now. So I picked this one up for that purpose because I had, you know, basically heard that Kizer's version of the lock was like very impressive. And I can say after getting this one in hand, I can validate that. In fact, this is the first crossbar lock that I've handled that I really enjoy the feeling of the actuation. On the Benchmades, I thought it felt kind of like mushy. I have a Bestech with a crossbar lock that is actually, the quality on it just feels amazing. But again, I didn't enjoy I guess, the tactile feeling of engaging or disengaging the lock. This one has this like really pleasant kind of clickiness or snappiness to it that, I mean, not only feels pleasant in a, a tactile sense, but also kind of gives a sense of additional quality, or maybe even confidence that the lock is engaging. I'm not really sure how to describe it, but it, I, I guess I just want to say that it feels good. So aside from that, I have to say, and this is another model that why was I sleeping? Why wasn't I listening to what people were saying? This thing has impressed me so much. Uh, I've carried this so much since I've gotten it. The ergonomics are so good. The the blade shape again was something that, like, in pictures and in videos I was looking at, I'm like, I don't get why people like that so much. But again, then once it's actually in hand, I mean, you can see that the finishing on it is great. It's another one of these polished and stonewashed finishes. The shape, it's a great blade shape for just about anything. Again, I like I mentioned, it feels so good in hand. Like, this melts into your hand, and I think this is something that I don't have large hands. I would say I have average sized hands. This works perfectly for me, and it does have contouring. I do especially love when there's a place for the index finger to sit, but it's not shaped in such a way that it forces you into that grip. You can very easily rotate this, change to a pinch grip, hammer grip. It all feels good. Looking around the knife, otherwise, it's got, this is kind of an oddity in terms of pocket clips, where it's constructed like a stamped clip, where it's folded over. But out here, the material's thicker, so it feels almost like it's machined and then after that treated like a stamped clip. Either way, the pocket clip works really nicely, functionally perfect. I think it looks well. It looks good too. And I mean, I think the stunning feature on this one in particular are these crystallized titanium scales, which have the gradient anodization going from blue to gold. And they look really, really good in person. Something that in photos I was like, okay, it looks kind of cool. But in person, in hand, these things are just so visually interesting. Again, this doesn't really add anything functional to the knife, but I mean, just look at it. Why wouldn't you like that? And that being said, I mean, this has been a popular model. They've made a bunch of different variants of this in all different kinds of materials and finishes. So they have versions with carbon fiber scales, with I think now they have ones with the Ultim scales. They've done titanium here, obviously. They've probably also done micarta. They've also done all different kinds of blade steels and finishes. So this one in particular is LC200N. And it's a steel that I don't have a lot of experience with. I know that the claim to fame with this steel is actually that it is completely stainless. It will not rust. The trade-off with that is that it doesn't hold an edge particularly well. It probably does fine compared to some of the other, I guess, more budget steels, low-end steels in terms of edge retention, but completely stainless. And from what I've read, it also has actually a good amount of toughness as well. So it might be similar to something like what's that steel? 14 C28N, but just more stainless. So I mean, this steel, I think, it was being used by Spyderco on like some of their models, that like the Salt series and the Spidey Chef. but I think that it's lost some of its relevance in the past couple of years due to the proliferation of MagnaCut and Vanax, which will offer, the same kind of level of stainlessness, but also perform much better in terms of edge retention. So I haven't really seen any other brands aside from Spyderco and Kizer using that steel. But again, I can't comment too much on it because aside from this, the only experience I've had with it was that I did have a friend with a Spidey Chef and I sharpened it for him. And I mean, again, because I guess it's a little bit on the softer side, it sharpened up quickly and easily, and it took a really, really sharp edge. But that's all I can really say about it. So I haven't used this much, so I'll see how it goes with how it performs. But actually, the factory edge on this is actually super impressive. If you've watched some of my previous videos, you know that I am kind of an edge snob. I do my own sharpening. I'm decent at it. I'm usually when I receive something new out of the box, one of the first things I do is I go, oh, well, that edge is disappointing. And before I've ever even used it, I'll go and sharpen it because it's not sharp enough for me. These Kizers that I've received new, factory edge, very impressive. No need to sharpen out of box. And from what I see, like with this one at least, no issues in terms of sharpening choil or clearing the plunge grind. So when I do go and sharpen this, there's going to be no issues with getting a smile back at the edge here, which is a pet peeve of mine. This one, it's cutting a little bit closer, but still, it shouldn't have any issues. The only thing I noticed here is, so there's kind of like a little curve back here, and then right at the back, it kind of protrudes a little bit more. To me, that's just like a little bit of slightly sloppy sharpening from the factory, but easy enough to correct when I go in and if and when I go in and sharpen that myself. So these three in particular, I am really enamored with, and I would really highly recommend that anyone check these out because I do not think that you'll be disappointed either in terms of the quality or the design. And I am actually planning to send a couple of these out to my friend so he can check them out and do his own videos on them. All right, so I hope you enjoyed and stay tuned.